is not fun? Well, I, Makwana Namraka, is here to show you that maths is just a fun challenge. It is as easy as y equals to mx plus c. And for those of you who didn't know, it is as easy as a straight line. So right now, it is that time for you to grab a paper, a pen, and a calculator and come learn maths with me. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Learn Maths with me on a hashtag Maths Tuesday. In today's episode of Learn Maths with me, we'll be doing factorization by difference of two squares. In this video, I want you to note that terms are separated by a negative and a positive sign. So when you look at this expression, we have 1, 2, 3 terms. Why am I saying it's only 3 terms? Because we count this middle ones as 1, as they are not separated by a negative or a positive sign. So we have 1. Let me just take my pen. So we have 1, and then this is counted as 1 term. Why? Because it is not separated by a negative or a positive sign. So we have 1, 2, 3 terms. So right now I really hope that you understand how we count terms. And then I want you to also know that what is a binomial. A binomial is an expression with 2 terms. So we can see that it is x, which is the first term, and the second term is 2. Why are we saying that we have 2 terms? Because they are separated by a positive sign. And I want you to also note this law of exponent. When one base shares 2 exponents, we keep the base and multiply the exponents. So this base is raised to 2 exponents, which is 2, which is inside the bracket, and 3 outside the bracket. So the law states that we multiply this exponents. So this bracket here just means that we have to multiply this exponent. So it is the same as a, we're keeping our base and then we multiply the exponents. So this term a squared close bracket to the exponent 3 is the same as a to the exponent 6. The law of exponent that I want you to note again is when 2 different bases share an exponent, raise each base to that exponent. So we have ab in brackets to the exponent 2. So when we have something like this, the law states that each base inside the bracket takes the exponent. So this is the same as a squared b squared. I really hope that you understand that. So now, since we know what we have to note in this video, let's get straight into it. What is difference of two squares? Difference of two squares is a binomial expression. Binomial expression, how do we know a binomial? We will see by 2 terms. A binomial expression in which each term is a squared number or variable, and the two terms are subtracted. So let's look at it. So what does this definition tell us? It says we have to have a binomial. We do have a binomial because it's 2 terms, and they must be squared. These 2 terms must be squared, and it can be a number or a variable. You can see we have a here and we have 2 here. So these 2 terms must be squared. How do we know that they are squared? We see by this 2. What does it say again? They have to have a minus sign or a negative sign in the middle. They have to be separated by a minus or a negative sign. Here it is. So we can see that this is difference of two squares. We can factorize it using the method of difference of two squares. So what is the condition of difference of two squares? We are going to have a bracket. We are going to have about 2 brackets. So the principle of difference of two squares, it says that these 2 brackets will have opposite signs. The first bracket may have a minus sign, and then the second bracket will have a positive sign. If this first bracket you put a positive sign, it means that the second bracket has to be a minus sign. So in the brackets, you're going to write the terms without the exponents. the terms without the exponent 2. So you're going to write your a, and then you may put a minus sign in this first bracket, and then you put down your 2. You put down this 2, leaving this exponent. And then in the second bracket, you do the same. You put down your a. Right now, you're putting an opposite sign to this one, which is a positive sign. And then you're putting down your 2. So you have factorized it using difference of two squares. So let's look at this. So you have an expression like this, which is a squared minus 4. So are you gonna wonder and be like, this is not difference of two squares? Well, this is also difference of two squares. Why? Because you can write this 4 in terms of squared like this. It's going to be, you're going to put down your a squared, your minus sign, and then change this 4 in terms of squared, which is 2 squared. 2 multiplied by 2 is 4. So you're going to factorize it using difference of two squares. You're going to have your two brackets. You're going to have your two brackets. You're going to write the terms without the exponent 2. A, then minus 2. A, you're going to put the opposite sign to this one, which is positive, and then plus 2. So you have factorized it using difference of two squares. I'm just going to take a list of questions which we are going to solve together using the difference of two squares. Before we get into the questions, let me just give a summary of what I was explaining here. So how do we know that we can use the method of difference of two squares? We know by the expression that we have. The expression must be a binomial, and these two terms which are a binomial must be separated by a negative sign. Like here, these two terms are separated by a negative sign, and these two terms again must be squared. They must have the exponent 2, or must be able to be changed to the form of exponent 2 like we changed our 4. So we're going to be solving our questions here using the method of difference of two squares where we don't have a common factor. So we are on question number 1. When looking at this, we know, okay, this meets the requirements of difference of two squares. Why? Because we can see our negative sign, and we can also see that this expression is a binomial, and again we can also see by the squared, the exponent 2, meaning that, okay, we are going to open our two brackets, and then we are going to write down the terms without the exponent 2. We're going to write x, we're going to write our 5, we're going to write our x, we're going to write our 5. And then in these two brackets, we put opposite signs. So in this bracket, we can put a positive sign, and this other bracket, we can put a negative sign. So if you multiply these two brackets using the law of distributive property, it will bring you back here. So if you don't know how to use the law of distributive property, you can check out my first Learn Maths with Me video. So let's move on to question number 2. When looking at this, okay, we can see that, okay, we have a binomial expression. We have a negative sign in between the two terms, and these two terms are squared, are in a form of squared. So meaning that we can apply the method of difference of two squares. Open our two brackets. We put down our terms without the exponents, and then we put opposite signs in the brackets, minus sign and a positive sign. So as you can see, we have factorized using the method of difference of two squares. So I really hope you understand. So let's move on to question 3. Let's look at this. Okay, we have a binomial, and these two terms are squared, but do we have a minus sign? No, we don't, meaning that we cannot apply the method of difference of two squares. So this cannot be factorized in the method of difference of two squares. So you're just going to write your x squared plus, so this 2 squared means that 2 must multiply itself twice. So 2 times 2 is going to give us 4. So you cannot factorize this using difference of two squares, or it cannot be factorized rather. So now we're on question number 4. You're going to check, do I have a common factor that fits into these two numbers without leaving a remainder? Yes. Which is the common factor? It is 2. So we write down 2 outside the bracket, and then we're going to divide. You know how we do this. 18 divided by 2 we're left with 9. In my previous videos, I explained that when we take out a common factor, we write down what is left inside the bracket after we took out the 2. We divided this 8 with 2 so that we can find a number that we can multiply with 2 to bring us back to 18. So now we're going to put our negative sign down, and then we're going to divide 32 with 2. We are left with 16. So I've chosen this question because we as learners tend to leave this question like this and say that this is a final answer. Well, we are wrong, because this can be simplified further using the method of difference of two squares. So I want to show you that, like, when you find your answer, you should check it first and see if you can simplify it further. So you can simplify this using difference of two squares. Why? Because 9 can be written in a form of squared, and 16 can be written in a form of squared, and this x is already written in a form of squared. So you're just going to put down your 2, you're not leaving it, and then you're going to open your bracket. You're going to change these two numbers to write them in a form of squared. So 9, how can it be written in a form of squared? It is 3 to the exponent 2. We know that 3 to the exponent 2, it is the same as 3 times 3, which gives us 9. So we're going to put down our x squared, and then put down our negative sign. And then how can we write 16 in a form of squared? So we know that 16 is in a form of squared, it is 4 squared. So if you want to find these answers using your calculator, you're just going to say square root of 9, which will give you 3. When we say square root, we mean that a number that can multiply itself twice to give us this number. So a number that can multiply itself twice to give us 9 is 3. That's why we say 3 squared. 3 multiplies itself twice, and 4 multiplies itself twice to give us 16. That's why we said square root of 16, it's 4. So when looking at this, you're going to apply the method of difference of two squares. You're going to put down your 2, you're not leaving it behind, and then open two brackets, write down these terms without the exponent 2, without the squared, meaning that you're going to write your 3x, and then in this first bracket you may write a minus sign, and then the second bracket you write your positive sign. So you can see that you have applied the method of difference of two squares. So without saying this is your final answer, you have to check first, can it be simplified further? No. Can it be simplified further? No. That's when you can say, okay, this is my final answer. So now we are moving on to question number 5. This is also difference of two squares. Why? Because 9 can be written in a form of squared. How? 9 is the same as 3 squared, and then we're going to put our x squared down, and then our minus y squared. So this 3 squared and x squared can be written as 3x all squared minus y squared. Why can I write this like this? Because of the law of exponent that says when two different bases share an exponent, raise each base to that exponent. So when this bracket shares this exponent, I can bring it back here by raising this basis to the exponent 2. So that's why I say this 3 squared and x squared is the same as this. I really hope you understand. So right now I'm going to open my two brackets, and then I'm going to write down the terms without the squared. 3x minus y, 3x, I'm going to put an opposite sign to this one, which is a positive sign, plus y. So we have factorized using difference of two squares. So right now let's move on to question number 6. Is this difference of two squares? Yes, it's difference of two squares. Why? Because we can write 16 in a form of squared, and then we can change x to the exponent 4 and write the exponent 4 in a product of 2, and then we can write this 1 in a form of squared, because 1 squared is the same as 1. So when we are having like questions like difference of two squares, when we have a 1, we change it, we put an exponent 2 on the 1, because putting the exponent 2 won't affect the answer. So we're going to change our 16 and write it in a form of squared, and then it's going to be 4 squared, and then we're going to put on our base x. How can we write 4 in a product where we have 2? So it's going to be 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is the same as 4. So x to the exponent 2 times 2 is the same as x to the exponent 4. Then minus 1 to the exponent 2. So we are giving our 1 exponent 2. Why? Because it won't affect the answer, and so that it can suit the factorization by difference of two squares. So we can write a 4 squared x to the exponent 2 times 2 as 4x squared, all in brackets, to the exponent 2. Why can I write it like this? Because of this law of an exponent and this law of exponent. It is the same as I'm saying, I'm raising this 2 to the power 4, which will give me 4 to the exponent 2, and x, and then I'll be multiplying this 2 exponent. So we can see that in this term we are applying these two laws of exponent by raising this power, raising this exponent to the two terms, and by multiplying the two exponents. I really hope you understand what I'm saying. And we're going to carry down our 1 to the exponent 2, and then open our two brackets, and then in the first bracket we're going to write here what is left after we took out this exponent 2. What is left? X to the exponent 2. Put the first sign, then we put down the 1 without the exponent 2, and then the second bracket, 4x squared, positive sign, it must be an opposite sign to the first one, then 1. I really hope you understand how we do that. And then before you can say that this is your final answer, you have to check the brackets if they can be simplified further. So when looking at the first bracket, you can see that this can be simplified further by using difference of two squares. Why? Because 4 can be written in a form of squared, and x is already written in a form of squared, and 1 can be written in a form of squared, and we have a negative sign. So when looking at the second bracket, you can see that it cannot be simplified further. Why? Because we don't have a negative sign here, which tells us that we cannot simplify it by using difference of two squares. So we're just going to continue factorizing the first bracket, open bracket, then we're going to change our 4 and write it in a form of squared. 4 written in a form of squared is 2 squared, and then our x squared minus sign, and then we write 1 in a form of squared, and then you're not leaving the second bracket behind, you're just going to write it as it is. And then so right now we're going to factorize the first bracket, so we're going to open our two brackets, and then we write down the terms without the exponent 2, which will be 2x and 1, 2x and 1, and then we write down opposite signs. So this side we may write a negative sign, meaning that this side we write a positive sign, and then we take down our bracket. So you have factorized it fully. So it is really important for you to always check if it can be simplified further, rather than just saying it is your final answer. Then the last question, which is the bonus question, is this one. I understand that this one can often be challenging, but it is not really a big deal. So you're just going to check, is this a binomial? Yes, it is a binomial. Why am I saying it is a binomial? Because this bracket just shows us that this is one term. So you're just going to open your two brackets, write down the first term without the squared, x, and then you put a sign, which is a minus sign, and then your second term without the squared, and then the second bracket, x, and then you put an opposite sign to this one, which will be a positive sign, and then you put your second term. So in this bracket, you're not changing the sign or anything, because it is one term, and the term you write it as it is. What you change is the signs between the two terms. And that is all for today's video of Learn Maths with me, as we were discussing factorization by difference of two squares. I really hope that you found it helpful and that you understood how I was explaining. Do not be afraid to leave a question if you have a question. Until the next video, goodbye. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and tell me in the comment sections which topic you'd like me to cover. And remember, I do not promise to know everything, but I do promise to share and help where I can.